Welcome everybody to the UpScale Business Podcast. I'm Mitch V and I've got Erina with me here today. How are you?
I'm good. Suspicious.
You are suspicious. Why? Because I pulled you aside and I said, Erina, I've got a podcast for you, a topic I want to discuss, but I'm not going to tell you about it.
Surprise.
And you know what? The podcast could end right here. But both you and I, in let's call it the last 3 years, we have stepped out of what we would call situations that didn't serve us.
They've left to steal our crown jewels.
And I feel like a lot of people do things that actually maybe don't make them happy, that don't serve them. And when I say serve, like they don't actually help them to be the greatest version of themselves.
Look, change is scary, right? Mm-hmm. So in any sort of situation. And I think that's a big thing.
You. Change is scary.
But
I often look at it and I'm like, imagine if you were 80 and you were looking back and I'm still doing that same thing that makes me unhappy or that I'm not my best person in. That to me scares me so much more than getting out.
I think that fear of the unknown, though, can hold a lot of people back.
Yeah, I agree.
So zooming out and thinking, what would I be like if I don't change when I'm 80? You can come to different conclusions, though, because you can look back and think, I wish I had stayed and just worked on it. Or you can say, I'm really glad I didn't.
That's my credo. No regrets.
Mm-hmm. You have no regrets?
Dad?
Nope.
Like not even a single letter?
No way.
There's just so many variables, right?
So how do you choose?
So I had two situations where I wish I had left a job sooner. I think that's a really valuable lesson that I learned because I'm like, I've done that again. I'm never going to do it after. I know, okay, you have to communicate better.
When have we ever had trouble communicating?
Oh, Peter, I love you.
About 5:15.
To try and change things. If you actually like working there, you can't find something else or you're in too deep sort of thing. Mm-hmm. If it's your own business, you have the responsibility of changing something that's not good. For me, it was early 20s thinking that I can't quit a job in hospitality because I was just too worried about finding the next one. And what I found though is that usually when you have that gut feel of this is not right for me and you move out of that and you close that door, 100 other doors open all of a sudden and you can choose which one you go through. It doesn't mean that all of that was always bad, but it just means it wasn't right at the time anymore and it's time to move on. Yep. So it's making that decision and maybe even while things are good, what are the points in your life where you feel like, okay, that's a no-go for me. If that happens, I will change what I'm doing. I'm changing my job. I'm changing where I'm living. I'm leaving my relationship. What are the red flags? What are the catalysts of I have to make a change?
The red flag.
How do you know when the right time to go, no, that's enough?
Your support network might give you some signs of hey, maybe change something. Even if it's changing your habit of going home watching Netflix, maybe we need to close that door and then instead go for a walk before you go home. Do something active. You choose your challenges.
Can I tell you how I determine when to make the change? I say by this time frame, this and this must be achieved or must have changed or must feel different. Sometimes they're a must. These 3 things must have happened. And sometimes it's this is the most important one and these other ones would be nice. I will come up with a date. Yep, a line in the sand moment. This is the things that have to be different by that time. And if they're not, then I will actually change it.
Change begets change begets change.
I think it's super important to go, what do I do do that?
What are the actions that I'm going to take to achieve that result?
Because you can't just expect, if you're saying I want to earn 10 grand more a year, you can't just expect for that to happen if you don't do anything about it. So having action step on how to get to that by that date, super important. If you're looking at 2 options, you could give job 1 on job 2 5 stars for the most important thing and the other gets 3 stars. And then depending on what's more important, you know exactly, okay, this is my priority. That gets 5 stars where this only gets 3 stars. Yep. So that's my obvious option. That decision metric It did help me in the past. I think putting a time frame on it is really helpful. I think it's harder to close a door if you don't have a second option or another something to go to, sort of thing. Like, I think that's when it gets really scary because you're going into the unknown.
Into the great unknown.
Sometimes you just have to do it anyway because the doors open after you close the first one. So in that case, it's having your standards, having your time. You put a date on it, but it might just, come out of nowhere. But if something doesn't fit and you realize, okay, no matter what comes next, this is not right the way it is, you have to move on.
I guess eventually we all have to move on.
But in saying that, if it's not right and you can definitely work on it and it's something that you can improve, do that first before. I just think you owe, like if it comes to relationships or jobs, if there's something that can be changed, you owe it to yourself to go, okay, how can I make that better?
One of the biggest lessons I ever learnt was that I'm in control of where I end up.
I control my destiny.
A lot of people could sit there and go like, you aren't always in control, but you are. I know that there's stuff out there that you aren't in control of. Like, I get that. I get there's unforeseen circumstances. I get that. But if you're at least taking action to move you forward to where you want to get, you are far closer to it than you were if you don't.
Sometimes in life and in love, risks must be taken.